what is a little bit how we see innovation, actually what we do, success factors, and a few examples where I think health sector can benefit from industry. It's going to be short. I can talk days about this, so you'll have to hunt me down the next 24 hours or 16 maybe. Anyway, let's see if I can get this. Yeah. Our mission, InnovationPioneers, it's a network. It's to, as you can read here, aggregate, produce, develop things within innovation. We work with methods, processes, tools, experiences, all to build innovation. And the charter we took on in 2008 was to help Sweden, first of all, with be better on innovation. We are quite highly rated in service and stuff in the culture, but we are not so good at actually making things commercial. We're quite good at inventing stuff, which is different from innovation, but it's a part of it, of course. So this is just from our convention we had a couple of weeks ago, so you can see a little bit who's here. And there are, see if I can point with this. I don't know if you can see these logos here, but the whole network is run by kind of a core, we call them initiators, and there are some companies here I think you can recognize. We have the Absolute Company. Could be good to have them when you have parties. Alfa Laval, AstraZeneca, we have E.ON, energy company, we have actually a company in your sector, which is the Swedish Institute of Assistive Technologies. And then, of course, IKEA is there, and Tetra Pak, and some other. So there is some pretty good knowledge in there. And we are, those, I think if you count, there's 17 companies, but we are somewhere around 100 companies that are involved, and about 600 people. And we are all practitioners, which means that we, in some way, work with innovation. We don't talk about it, we do it in a some sense. So what is innovation for us? And this is important, and also in your discussions. And you need to be, just as you had some descriptions before about definitions there, you need to agree on what this innovation is. A lot of people think innovation is the same as an invention, but that's not how we see it. We see that it's people, first of all, and it's creating and implementing, could say, new ideas that create value. So it can be a product, but it can also be a process, and it can be whatever things. So it's more of a way of thinking and working. And this is just a picture down here on showing actually a picture that we made in 2008. So it's more like an artifact, but showing all the different aspects of innovation. It's not just processes and stuff that you can buy from consultants and stuff, but there's a lot of things. It's culture, it's all kind of stuff. And we can speak a lot about that. So, what we do in our network, we of course discuss, but we spend most of our time in workshops, actually doing stuff together, so that we can really exchange not just the best practice, but also the not so good practices and the really bad ones, because it's actually our experience that a good practice in one company is not necessarily a good practice in another company, and a bad one in one company can actually be a good one in another company. It depends on the culture and how you work, all that kind of stuff. And this is important in a network, that you build that kind of trust that you can actually talk about the things that are not going so good also. Because it's easy to go to a big conference somewhere and hear every success story. That's not hard. But to hear people talk about what didn't work, the learnings, that's harder. So it's more, it's practitioners, it's networking, and also here I try to lump together some of the success factors, and then I reiterate that we are practitioners. We are not talking just about it, we're doing this stuff. Not so much speeches, just like I'm doing here, so not so much about this. You need to be diverse. there is no silver bullet process, even if you can find a lot of companies out there that will tell you that they have the solution that fix everything. My experience, which is quite a lot of years in this now, there is no silver bullet. Not something that fits in any aspects, at least. You need to be different. You need to have all kind of aspects in, and you really want, which is hard, of course, you really want the people in there that is not just saying yes, that they are thinking differently and actually saying no. It's hard to do that as a leadership thing, but it's beneficial for innovation. And as I said, both good and bad stuff. So what about things that we can help with from the industry? Because I didn't say that, but most of my time I spend in Alfa Laval, which is a mechanical industry company. We make heat exchangers, high-speed separators, and all kind of stuff that treats chemicals, oil, olive oil, beer, wine, whatever. So that's my home, and that's why I can talk a little about it. I think that, and also by talking to these guys from this Institute for Assistive Technology, they have pinpointed that working with, for instance, I'll try to put the picture of it here. I'm going to talk about the customer journey. Where does in this case, probably patient is one of your customers. Whether they meet your system, and what can you do in all these points? That's a very good tool to work with. The other tool is, I don't know how many have seen this before, but this is very used now in industry, a business model canvas. You need to work with how the business model looks. You need to look at all those aspects. And there's even more advanced ones than this, but it's a really good way of challenging what you want to do, because it's one thing to have a good product. It's another thing to actually deliver value with it. And while listening to Alison here, I also understood that, which I would like to put on here, but value-based pricing is something that the industry is working a lot with, figuring out. I mean, in the old days, in my experience also, I've been in Alfa Laval in many countries, but I've been there for 22 years. And when we started, everything was what we call cost plus. You make a product, you estimate how much money you need to make on it, and then you sell it. We don't do that anymore. We estimate what the market is willing to pay, and that's what they can pay. And then we see what the market is. And sometimes it can be huge, sometimes it's tiny. And it's our job to see to that it's enough. So that's something I think you need to think about also. Can you really look at the values first of all, and then come in with in maybe your way is more costing, but it's pricing in reverse. There's another way we also work with that I thought about when you're talking a lot about technologies. Technologies are very important, but there's a saying in industry, it's been along for a couple of years now, we call it the job to be done. I mean, technology, yes, but there might be very different technologies that do the same thing. So you have to really focus on what is it that your customer or customers are actually paying for. And they might have very different alternatives to that. And it might be very high technology or low technology. But that's what you need to start. It's so many, if you take from industry point of view, there's so many companies out there that have died with what they think is the best product ever. But they haven't thought through the business model or what it's actually going to do for the customer. And that's kind of also connects a little bit to what Robert said about here. Maybe not, and this is my opinion, maybe not the doctors is maybe not the best guys to figure out how the system should work. In the same case as we don't bring in our experts. For instance, if we're going to develop an alternative to the heat exchanger, I don't bring in the experts on heat exchange from our company, because they are experts on heat exchange and they know exactly what we do today. For them to think totally different is really, really hard. So you need to have someone that's not an expert. Then you bring in the experts to finish off and solve the technology in the end. So you need to kind of twist that around a little bit. Now we have to do questions later.
Thank you, Klas. That was really helpful. I mean, I think it is about us getting a breath of fresh air and looking at these things from a different way. Most importantly was what you said at the beginning, which is not just talking about it, but do innovation. And actually, this is about people creating and implementing the values that we ought to see there. So that's really helpful.